In China, Venezuelan Foreign Affairs Minister Iván Gil continues his official visit to strengthen ties. On Wednesday, Gil met with the Director of the China National Space Administration, Zhan Kejian. The June 5th, the world celebrates the Environment Day, which in 2024 focuses on land restoration, desertification, and drought resilience. In Colombia, social movements take to the streets to demand the elimination of paramilitarism. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Wednesday, the Venezuelan delegation headed by Foreign Affairs Minister Iván Gil held a working meeting in the city of Beijing with the Director of the China National Space Administration, Zhan Kejian. The meeting focused on giving continuity to the historic space collaboration agreement signed last year between both countries, which include the training of Venezuelan cosmonauts in China and future missions to the moon. During the visit of the Venezuelan delegation, they evaluated the progress of the agreement signed at the 17th High-Level Joint Commission held in September 2023, when President Nicolas Maduro traveled to the Asian nation, as well as the celebration of the 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries. The President of Bolivia, Luis Arce, arrived in Russia on Wednesday to participate in the International Economic Forum in St. Petersburg. The Bolivian president was received with honors at the St. Petersburg airport. During his official visit, Arce will fulfill an agenda that includes a meeting with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, to be held first privately and then with the participation of representatives of both countries. During the meeting, they are expected to address issues related to the future development of bilateral cooperation in addition to analyzing the proposal to include Bolivia in the BRICS group. Also in Russia, President Vladimir Putin warned that attacks with the participation of Western countries against the Russian Federation mean a direct war against the nation in which Moscow can respond. During the annual meeting with heads of Russian and international news agencies within the framework of the International Economic Forum in St. Petersburg, the president stated that the Kremlin will reserve the right to act in a similar way, as this is the way to more serious problems. The Russian head of state also warned the government of Germany that the use of German weapons by Ukraine to attack targets in Russia would be a dangerous step and would ruin diplomatic relations between Berlin and Moscow. Putin considered that Russia also has the right to provide long-range weapons to attack targets in the West. On Wednesday at the South Korea Africa 2024 summit attended by delegations from 48 African countries, Kenya's President William Ruto urged rich countries to do more to unlock Africa's full potential, from better financing initiatives to encouraging technology transfers and funding clean energy transitions.
There is need for greater investment in the continent of Africa to unlock African potential, not necessarily to benefit Africa alone. We can use the renewable energy assets we have, the mineral resources we have, the human capital we have in our African continent to decarbonize not just our production and consumption, but global consumption and global production.
This June 5th, the world celebrates the Environment Day. The day brings together millions of people from across over 150 countries around the globe, engaging them in the effort to protect and restore the Earth. The United Nations designated the International Day, which has been led by the organization's Environment Program since its inception in 1973. The event aims to celebrate environmental action and the power of governments, businesses, and individuals to create a more sustainable world. In 2024, World Environment Day is being hosted by Saudi Arabia with a focus on land restoration, desertification, and drought resilience. In Brazil, on the occasion of World Environment Day, the Landless Movement carries out massive plantings throughout the week for the reforestation of the areas near Rio Grande do Sul. The initiative of the MST movement is part of the National Day in Defense of Nature and its peoples, in cooperation with indigenous communities, universities, and Lula da Silva's government agencies. The massive planting is being carried out from a helicopter with 12 tons of seeds from Jucara and Araucaria trees, species at risk of extinction. The main objective of the movement is to increase biodiversity, confront global warming, and help regenerate the flora that was destroyed by the floods and rains that affected Rio Grande do Sul.
It is an extraordinary experience. First, the initiative of the organized social movements, of the landless rural workers movement, plus the indigenous communities, to have this concern with a project that can generate income and protect the forest, in this case the Atlantic forest. It is an alliance between universities, social movements and government that demonstrates that it is possible to preserve and produce healthy food for the population.
Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. In parallel to the genocide committed by Israel in Gaza, where 100 Jewish extremists stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem's Old City on Wednesday, carrying Israeli flags and chanting provocative songs in celebration of Flag Day. Under heavy police protection, the extremists stormed the Muslim holy site, while it is also a Jewish holy place since 1967. Agreement worship at the site is reserved for Muslims, while Jews can only enter as visitors and pray at the nearby Wailing Wall. Rabbis and officials, including the far-right Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, also took part in the demonstration. Flag Day celebrates the end of the 1967 war, which gave way to the illegal occupation of the West Bank and East Jerusalem. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu assured on Wednesday that Israel is ready for a very intensive operation on the border with Lebanon. Since October, the Israeli occupation forces have been exchanging fire with the Hezbollah resistance movement, as the Lebanese movement has been supporting the Palestinian cause in the face of Tel Aviv's genocide in Gaza. On the other hand, local media denounced an increase in the number of Israeli attacks on Lebanese territory over the past week, while the Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir and Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich have called for urgent measures to restore security in northern Israel. Humanitarian organizations report that the Israeli occupation army has used white phosphorus munitions to attack at least 17 towns in southern Lebanon. Since October 2023, Israel has endangered, targeted, and displaced civilians in Lebanon by bombarding towns in the south of the country with white phosphorus and other explosive devices. An international human rights organization warned that white phosphorus is a highly dangerous chemical used in artillery shells, bombs, and missiles that can cause fire, serious injuries, and death. The use of this substance is a violation of human rights and international law, and its indiscriminate use is considered an illegal act by human rights organizations. According to the Lebanese Health Ministry, at least 400 people have been killed and 1,603 injured in Lebanon by the Israeli army since the beginning of the latest escalation of its war against Palestine. The health agency also emphasized that during this time, some 94,000 people have been left homeless. In Venezuela, hundreds of citizens mobilized in the state of Bolívar in support of the government and in rejection of the sanctions imposed by the United States against the country. The demonstration was led by the President of the National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez, and the Executive Vice President, Delcy Rodriguez. The people gathered in the streets to show their support to the policies implemented by President Nicolás Maduro. Moreover, the citizens raised slogans in rejection to the sanctions imposed by the U.S. government. It should be noted that these mobilizations are being carried out throughout the national territory, as indicated by President Maduro.
Those who stole our gold from England, who stole a company in Colombia called Monomeros, who became multimillionaires by stealing what belongs to the people of Venezuela. They provoked us. They believed with their bold faces that they could steal. Asked for sanctions, asked for invasions, send a letter to the government of Netanyahu telling Netanyahu, go and do in Venezuela the same barbarity that you're doing in Gaza. They are now coming to ask for the vote of the people, as if the people have no memory, as if the people doesn't remember all the damage they did.
In Colombia, social movements took to the streets to demand the elimination of paramilitarism. In the framework of the National Mobilization for Life and Permanence in the Territories, demonstrators denounced a wave of paramilitary violence against the popular communities of the country and the forced displacement of its inhabitants. The Congress of the Peoples and other organizations detailed that the mobilizations are not against the government of Gustavo Petro, but they do urge the state to take actions to solve the causes of the social, political, environmental, and armed conflict in the country. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador said he will wait for the resolution of the International Court of Justice on the lawsuit filed by his government against Ecuador before making any kind of decision.
Eso está en la Corte Internacional.
The issue with Ecuador is in the International Court, and we have already stated our position. We're going to wait for the court's ruling. Hopefully, before the end of my mandate, there will be a ruling from the court. If not, then in the next government. But we're not going to re-establish relations until there is a ruling from the International Court of Justice.
President López Obrador added that Mexico will continue to support Cuba as long as the United States does not lift the blockade.
No, because we have been helping. And we have very good relations with governments that have not been able to. Especially because there has not been the will on the part of the U.S. government. To put it kindly, to reach a good agreement with Cuba. For example, and that good agreement with Cuba means lifting the blockade now. So of course that affects the economy and well-being in Cuba. And that leads to an increase in migration. So as long as there is no agreement, we continue to help.
Mexican President spoke on the phone with his U.S. counterpart Joe Biden after the recent U.S. tightening of immigration policies. During the call, the heads of state agreed to continue the close collaboration between both countries in order to manage the migratory flows in the region. Furthermore, they convened to increase their government's efforts to address the structural causes of migration in Latin America and the Caribbean. And following her clear victory in Sunday's general election, Mexican President-elect Claudia Sheinbaum welcomes the international support she has received. On her social media X, the President-elect expressed to be very grateful to the member countries of ALBA-TCP for their congratulations on the occasion of her electoral victory. Sheinbaum added that Latin America and the Caribbean must strengthen their integration in order to better face the great global challenges based on dialogue and cooperation. Brazil continues to grow. The South American giant surpassed Italy, becoming the 8th largest economy in the world. President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva posted on his social media, "One more proof that we are on the right track," after the Brazilian Institute of Geography and Statistics announced that Brazil's GDP grew by 0.8% during the first quarter of 2024. Brazil ended 2023 as the 9th largest economy in the world, after overtaking Canada, a triumph that Lula also highlighted at that time. We now have a functional break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. fun short break. Don't go away. Welcome back. Workers' unions in Nigeria on Wednesday suspended for a week a nationwide strike that had paralyzed airport operations and other basic services for several days. The measure comes after the beginning of talks between the Nigerian Congress of Labor and trade union organizations and the government in search of an agreement in response to the demands of the workers, who are asking for a 16-fold increase in the minimum wage. In this sense, the labor organizations warn that if the objectives demanded are not met, they will resume the strike without notice. In the meantime, Nigerian workers and people continue to support the strike and the initiative of the Nigerian Labour Congress.
The Nigerian Labour Congress are actually exercising their right because you get poor masses are suffering. Things are very expensive, so they need to come up with this so as to government to, address some issues and to make everyone comfortable.
I'm not disappointed at what Labour is doing. We encourage them to do more. They have been sitting around the table will not end. We are really not happy with the government, how it's treating the populace. What Labour is asking is not too much. At all, it's not too much.
In Ethiopia, the African Union holds the 16th ordinary session of the Specialized Technical Committee on Defense, Security and Safety to address emerging challenges on the continent. The meeting aims at sharing ideas and reinforcing collective efforts to approach security challenges affecting the 55 African Union member states. The encounter also serves as a platform to provide updates in the progress of the implementation of previous committee decisions. The official gathering was preceded by the 19th ordinary session of the African Chiefs of Defense Staff and Heads of Safety and Security Services, which also focused on the threats faced by the continent. In other news, the French justice banned on Wednesday the sale of the Mexican 1986 World Cup Golden Ball won by Diego Maradona and ordered its seizure until the dispute over the trophy's whereabouts gets resolved. The Argentine football star's trophy was due to be auctioned in France on Friday in what could have been a record sale for a sporting object. With the decision, the Versailles Court of Appeal upheld the request of Maradona's heirs, who claimed the object, which reappeared in 2016 after nearly 3 decades, was lost after it got stolen from a bank safe in Italy in 1989. The South American Football Confederation, known as CONMEBOL, announced that the Israeli team will not take part in the Copa America that will be played in the United States beginning on June 20th. On April, the Israel Football Association signed an agreement with the South American Football Confederation, CONMEBOL, to allow the men's national team to take part in the Copa America, but the decision was strongly criticized by human rights organizations and social activists. In this sense, 8 of CONMEBOL's member countries sent letters expressing their refuse and support for the Palestinian people, so the Confederation decided to take a step back and exclude Israel from the tournament. In Isla Fuerte, located in the Colombian Caribbean, there is an underwater museum created to protect the coral reefs. The museum has 25 clay figures, each 1.5 meters high, arranged in a kind of artificial reef. The sculptures are known for refuge for corals, which have been affected by poor tourism practices and climate change. The corals, which are marine invertebrates, live in symbiosis with algae that live within their tissues and provide them with nourishment. However, when the water is too warm, they expel the algae and turn white, which exposes them to disease and death. Colombia has a coral area equivalent to 100,000 football fields. However, 70% of them are damaged. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.